Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and hosting today's show. Up first, hazardous weather graphic. We've still got winter weather advisory out for the Alaska Range until 6 a.m. Sunday. So for tonight, looking for, I believe, 4 to 6 inches additional snow combined with areas of gusty winds, and that'll reduce visibilities there. So again, that advisory out through tonight. And there's a heavy snow warning out, or a winter storm warning for heavy snow here for the northern panhandle, actually the Klondike Highway Haines area above 2,500 feet. And that's out all night tonight until about 9 a.m. Sunday. And in those areas there along the Klondike Highway, again above 2,500 feet, looking for 5 to 9 inches of snow, and 10 to 14 inches of snow are forecast for White Pass. And moving on to the next graphic here, showing the areas farther to the north. Winter storm warning remains out here for the northern Koyukuk, or for the Koyukuk Valley there, Bettles, and then northeastward, north of Fort Yukon there, over the northern upper Yukon Valley into the Arctic Village zone, and looking for 2 to 3 inches additional snowfall in these areas until, let's see, 6 a.m. Sunday, and that'll give a total of about 8 inches there. And winter weather advisories here, Shishmaref and the northwest coast due to gusty winds, snow, and blowing snow, reducing visibilities as well. And the winter storm warning here for St. Lawrence Island, that stays out again tonight, ends at 6 a.m. Saturday morning, and that's for the another couple inches of snow combined with what's already fallen, and the winds gusting to 50 miles an hour. That'll create visibilities near zero at times throughout the night tonight. Moving on, satellite imagery, you can see snow showers in the cold air here, pattern shifting eastward, moving into Bristol Bay right along the coast. Snow showers ended at Pribilof this afternoon, and snow gusty north winds, temperatures below freezing here for the Alaska Peninsula. Band of snow in the central interior here, kind of demarcating the north and northwest flow from the south and southeast flow here. And we had a pretty good storm system move on to the North Gulf Coast today, really falling apart this afternoon, just a weak low now in the Susitna Valley. Another one here on its heels tracking northeastward, and one farther to the south there that will be actually kicking in and weakening across the Panhandle tomorrow. And rolling this again, mostly just clouds here in the eastern interior areas with mild temperatures, Eagle up into the mid-30s today at least, and some breaks in the Copper River Basin with the southerly winds, and snow, mostly snow, most areas except Anchorage today here, but heaviest precipitation amounts were where it fell as rain, with both Valdez and Cordova picking about an inch of rain in the 12-hour period ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon. And on the chart here this afternoon, there's that this low right here, the 984 millibar low in the Susitna Valley. That was that intense storm that was over the eastern Gulf of Alaska yesterday, came up to the coast and is really falling apart now. And here's the next one coming up quite rapidly. So that's keeping the winds up along the coast. You see tight gradient over the southeast coast, with the rain, though, tapering off on down toward the southern panhandle, and dry conditions north of the Alaska Range, just some maybe scattered snow showers, and the swath of snow here west of these low centers through the central interior, right on down to the Alaska Range. And some of that got into Cook Inlet. Homer had snow this afternoon as well as Kenai. And snow showers, westerly flow here, weak trough coming across Bristol Bay. And then we've got this low here edging in toward Norton Sound, or at least on the south shore there of Norton Sound. Snow and blowing snow again, winds this afternoon still gusting 45 to 50 miles an hour at Gamble and through the Bering Strait. And it looked like winds coming down a little bit from what they had been here along the northwest coast, still gusting around 40 miles an hour at Point Hope, and 25 to 35 Kivalina and into the interior there. Areas of light snow up across the Brooks Range all the way to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. This system here producing storm force winds, at least for tonight here, with tight gradients south of that low center, front pushing rain eastward here to about Nikolsky. Well, it breaks out in between systems there for Dutch Harbor, just like the Pribilofs. And taking a look at the forecast for tonight, you can see low pressure tracks northward to the Queen Charlotte Islands. And this front, as a result, keeps this front from moving too far to the east. Low pressure moves in, kind of all condenses the two low centers with the one that's already over the northeast interior. End up with a 982 millibar low. That'll keep the snow going in those warning areas up to the north. And look for snowfall levels above 2,500 feet here for the Panhandle. See very warm air pushing all the way up into the Yukon. Otherwise, snow showers, south central Alaska, periods of light snow. Kind of unsettled, snowy conditions as temperatures finally drop below freezing in all areas here, southern Alaska. Blowing snow possible to the Brooks Range, and that continues tonight. The winter storm warning here for the Bering Strait coast on down to St. Lawrence Island. Looks like snow, colder air following that front end, so mostly in the form of snow, probably wet snow with that west-southwest wind direction here following in the front up to the Pribilofs, periods of snow, and colder air wrapping back in around towards Shemya for some pretty good snow showers. And for tomorrow, one low center tracks up toward Kuskokwim Bay, mixed rain and snow along the coast. Again, a mixed condition here across southern Alaska, or from Kodiak Island, up along the Kenai Peninsula areas. But it looks like it'll start to dry out in the afternoon for the Sitna Valley, maybe the Manuska Valley. Chance of snow, Copper River Basin. Northern Kuskokwim Valley looks pretty good tomorrow, basically dry. Chance of snow out over the deltas, and diminishing winds now. They won't end completely there for St. Lawrence Island. Back up across the Chukchi Sea, periods of snow, Brooks Range northward to the Arctic coast. And that trough here, that low weakens. Instead of curving northward, this one's kicking off to the east. And that's going to be kind of the pattern now with the high pressure area weakening over western Canada. So could see some moderate amounts of rain over the southern southeast coast tomorrow, with still a chance of snow in the north. And then for the outlook on Monday, that low tracks eastward, stays to the south, still curving up to the north there. So that's going to hold the cold air in across southern Alaska back to the west. So it looks like pretty good chance of snow, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, on up into the Copper River Basin, mixture from Cordova to Yakutat. Another round of rain, heavy at times, and possible storm force winds, definitely gales here for the Panhandle ahead of this front, which won't move into the area there until probably later Monday night. Still have the snow and blowing snow, in fact even a colder air mass coming down across the Bering Sea on Monday here, with snow squalls blowing into the Pribilof Islands. Rather strong low center, 970 millibars. That'll create snow and blowing snow with temperatures in the 20s here for the Alaska Peninsula. Chance of snow along the southwest coast. Dry over the northeast interior. Chance of snow showers with a weak trough coming in towards Shemya. Lows for tonight, 15 to 20 below here for the Arctic coast. Otherwise, single numbers in the central interior. Actually, all the way to Bethel, forecast low 9. Dillingham was 8 this morning. Looking for the teens there tonight. Mid-20s Copper River Basin, mid to upper 20s South Central Alaska, 30s to lower 40s for the Panhandle, and the highs for Sunday afternoon. Mid-40s for the southeast coast, mid-30s for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, 34 Valdez, mid-20s Copper River Basin. Still kind of mild, although it may occur earlier in the day there at Eagle with 33, but into the teens, Tanana Valley, westward all the way out to St. Lawrence Island, single numbers, and then below zero for the Arctic coast, mid-30s for the Pribilofs, 40 for the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. And the lows Monday morning, mid to upper 30s for the Panhandle, and lower to mid-20s South Central Alaska, Susitna Valley closer to the 20-degree mark, teens Copper River Basin, single numbers here, a little above zero for the Tanana Valley, falling to a little below zero into the Brooks Range, and about the same up there along the Arctic coast, with lows here for the Alaska Peninsula, upper 20s to lower 30s, and lower 30s for the remainder of the area, and mid-20s for the Pribilofs. And Monday afternoon highs staying below zero over the Arctic coast, lower 30s here across southern Alaska, lower 40s for Kodiak Island, and mid-40s in some areas of the Panhandle.
And now, Aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into flying weather, first graphic here. A lot of IFR here over the central and into the northern interior on out to the eastern Arctic coast. Back westward there, Kobuk-Selawik Valley, Kotzebue, and the northern Seward Peninsula. And some of that extending down into the northern Kuskokwim Valley to the Alaska Range. Some more IFR here. Wrangell Mountains, eastern North Gulf Coast, and that also covers the northern Panhandle with marginal conditions to the south. Narrow band of IFR out here over the Bering Sea there. Looks like it's just catching the Pribilofs. Then some VFR breaking out from Atka Island over toward Nikolsky. Tomorrow afternoon, some IFR now from the Southwest Mountains, Kuskokwim Bay area right up to along and east of the Alaska Range here. Marginal VFR, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, Manusquesit Valley, and southern interior. Still some IFR in the northern or the North Gulf Coast. Big area IFR up here from the Koyukuk Valley, Upper Yukon, right on out to the Arctic coast. A little bit IFR there over the southeastern portion of the Panhandle. And then for Monday morning, IFR, eastern southeast coast here, Lincoln Glacier Bay, Yakutat, Cordova, North Gulf Coast into the Coast Range. Prince William Sound, looks like the Talkeetnas and Susitna Valley, as well as the Manusquesit Valley in the IFR, back out to the west and northward there to the Nulato Hills, and then cutting back across Kotzebue Sound, and then wrapping back down to St. Lawrence Island, Brooks Range IFR, VFR here over portions of, looks like roughly the 40-mile country, about Eagle on down, maybe as far south as Tok, but marginal VFR here for the Aleutians, Bering Sea, and Kodiak Island. And then for the afternoon, not much change in that pattern. A few breaks becoming VFR way out here to the west. IFR up over the northern interior, northern Seward Peninsula, Chukchi Sea through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island. Some more IFR here. Western Cook Inlet into the northern central Kuskokwim Bay, Delta or Kuskokwim Valley areas, and some IFR North Gulf Coast, marginal for the Kenai Peninsula, Gulf of Alaska into the Panhandle. This area IFR holding over the eastern portions of the Panhandle. And for passes, Anutuvik and Adigan, both IFR tomorrow. Looking at Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal, as well as rainy, kind of a marginal VFR day. Windy though, starting out IFR, but improving to VFR in the afternoon. And for Isabel, occasionally marginal. And Mentasta, starting out marginal VFR, and that'd be mostly on the southern entrance, but probably as you progress through the morning, it'll become VFR, and that'll last through the afternoon. And for Tanita, marginal VFR becoming VFR. And Portage, marginal VFR all day long, and Chilkoot and White, IFR. Checking out the freezing levels for tomorrow morning, we've got 2,000 to 4,000 feet here along the southeast coast. There kind of still that southerly flow, south-southeasterly flow, but shifting eastward. Therefore, colder air coming in across southern Alaska. You see at the surface Kodiak Island down to the coastline here. But a little bit of a retreating northward. Now we've got the surface north of the Pribilofs by tomorrow morning. That advancing system coming eastern, you see it nudges 2,000 feet up to the Alaska Peninsula. Could be some considerable moderate rime icing, not too much here, maybe into Fognak Island, Kamishak Bay, and mostly south of the Kenai Peninsula. Otherwise, just areas of isolated moderate here in the shaded areas, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Bay, and then back out southern Bering Sea areas of the Aleutians. Possibly some icing of the isolated moderate variety here, mostly rime up over the northern interior and the northwest, and also here along the southeast coast, occasional mostly light icing there with maybe some isolated moderate. And then for the jet stream, you can see the entire pattern shifting eastward. Jet stream actually pushing to the south now. One branch still coming around with a trough through here, 70 knots over the eastern interior there, but the stronger jet now east of even the Panhandle. Colder upper level lows here from the western interior right on out to Kamchatka Peninsula. 9,000 feet, southwest flow again, strongest flow here now east of the area into the Gulf, cutting across the Panhandle at 55 knots, south-southwest 15 to 30 knots over the interior. 3,000 feet, southwesterlies, Aleutians into Bristol Bay, coming lighter here over the interior, a couple of lows here, and then northeasterlies 15 to 35, and Pretty brisk yet over the southeast coast with some moderate chop.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us today is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Thank you for joining us, Eric.
My pleasure, Dave.
Thank you. And you're joining us here to talk a little bit more about satellites and how satellites work, and especially one neat feature that's working over Alaska right now. What is that?
Well, there's a lot of weather satellites and a lot of instruments on these satellites, and there are new generations going up and new instruments. This includes something called the Day-Night Band, which is not a cover band at the local bar, but it's a new satellite that is very useful, especially here in Alaska, especially in the winter.
In the wintertime, yeah, that makes it a little bit hard to use some of the normal tools that we associate with weather satellite imagery.
Right. You know, one of the classic weather satellite instruments is just visible light. What would the human eye see if you were riding on a weather satellite yourself and looked down and it was black and white? You'd see the clouds reflecting the sunlight. And we've got an example from the Pacific Ocean. There's a geostationary satellite, and we can see that the eastern side of the image is in daylight. The western side, it's night over there, so you don't see anything because there's no sunlight over there. And visible imagery, it's very intuitive. You see the clouds just like you see them standing on the ground, but now you're a satellite seeing them from above. But the problem is, what about the night side of the planet? How do you track the storms? How do you know where the rain is, the snow, the weather, if you can't see the clouds? And that's why, just like a television can change from one channel to another, or a radio can change stations, satellites can change the frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum that they're looking at. We can go to infrared instead of visible light. You know, it's heat energy. You can see heat, and we've got another satellite picture from the same time, same satellite, out over the Pacific Ocean. That's the infrared side, and we're seeing temperature there. And even at night, when there's no light, everything still has a temperature.
So we're sensing something with a thermometer instead of perhaps the visible side of that, is what you're saying?
That's right. On this depiction, colder features are lighter shades, warmer features are dark. And so clouds tend to be colder than the ground. Clouds are higher in the atmosphere, it's cooler. And so that very same image on the western or the left-hand side of the globe, now we can see the clouds there, even though it's nighttime, because we're seeing the temperatures. And one nice feature is that tropical storm there, just in the middle of the northern hemisphere there, hurricane or typhoon, depending on...
That's that swirly part that we see in the middle of the image?
There you go. You can even see the eye on it there, especially in the infrared image. So we've got two kinds of imagery there from the same satellite, different instruments, you know, different channels like on a television, visible and infrared. You know, it turns out there's no one magic tool. Each has its strengths, each has its flaws, weaknesses. The visible is nice, it's intuitive, it's easy to understand, but doesn't work at night. Infrared is nice, it works at night, you can see temperatures, but there is a catch. What if your clouds and the nearby bare ground or open water, what if those were about the same temperature?
Oh, that's going to be hard to figure out what's going on.
If you can only see temperature and you have two features that are the same temperature, they will look the same. You won't be able to tell. They're camouflaged. This happens, especially, it can happen around Alaska, especially over the ocean when you have low clouds that are the same temperature as the open water.
That happens quite a bit in Alaska.
We have an example. Now, this is from a different geostationary satellite. It's down over the Atlantic Ocean. Look in the South Atlantic. In infrared, we've highlighted in a yellow circle there. There's some patches of clouds, but it looks like there's a clear area in the middle of that image. That's the infrared look. But let's take a look at the visible channel, and we can see there's a stripe of clouds across the middle of that circle that is only visible in the visible. The trick here is that those are low clouds of about the same temperature as the surrounding ocean. So from an infrared point of view, where you're seeing temperature, the clouds in the water nearby are the same temperature, they look the same. It's only on the visible that you can see what stands out as the actual imagery. Two tools, each have their strengths and weaknesses. Can we combine them? That's where the day-night band comes in. It's a super sensitive visible sensor that can actually see by moonlight. It can even see the aurora. And in Alaska, we have long winter nights. We can use that day-night band. Here's an example from that storm that blew the Kullik drilling platform ashore near Kodiak Island in December back in 2012. This image is right near when that storm happened, and it's in the middle of the night. in December.
But this looks like visible imagery.
Looks like daytime imagery. It's amazing. That sensor can take any little bit of moonlight and just make the most of it. And we can see so much detail. Even in the northern part of the image there, you can see some aurora up there. The northern lights.
That's that band that goes across the Arctic slope?
You got it. That's the northern lights. We're seeing black and white image here,
Yeah.
so you don't get the green or the purple colors
How
there.
about that?
But that is the aurora. There's another example of the day-night band, and this is from January of 2013. It's about 4 in the morning, and this is a snapshot from Weather Service software. And we can even see in the middle of the image, there's the lights of Fairbanks and North Pole over to Eielson Air Force Base. Anchorage and Matsu lights, city lights, are evident as well.
Sure
We can see, even though it's 4 in the morning in January, there is no sunlight to be had, that just enough moonlight is available that this sensor can see that. So we're trying to solve that puzzle where visible light is good, but only during the daytime. IR is good at night, but you can't see the difference between clouds and ground sometime.
Right.
The day-night band is an attempt to do the best of both with one tool. And it's brand new for Alaska here, and we're hoping to use it in the forecast process and help predict storms, weather patterns, to help get good forecast for people.
Okay, another tool in the weather toolkit for meteorologists in Alaska and researchers worldwide. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today. And you can learn more about Dehne and the day-night band by going to the web address that you see on your screen. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis. Not much different from what we had yesterday due to a lot of cloudiness here. There was some increase back through here that was seen, and probably with the cold temperatures, ice all through this open area continuing to slowly increase right on down to the Bering Strait, and to a lesser extent here, say for Norton Sound, due to the northerly winds, might be actually compressing that back a little. And continued slow growth, the forecast for the next several days. And for the coastal water forecast here, pretty strong tomorrow. South coast, west 45 knots, seas in the lower 20s. Storm force winds, south 50, Clarence Strait, 10-foot seas, east 25, gust 45, Stevens Passage out of the east, and then south 25 for Lynn Canal. Lighter winds here on the north coast, 15 to 20 knots out of the west. And big increase in the winds here coming up for Monday. We've got south winds 50 knots, storm warnings the entire length of the coastline here with gusts 65 knots, hurricane force gusts there. Southeast 45 for Clarence Strait, 45 knots from the southeast, also for Stevens Passage, and storm force gusts from the southeast in Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound tomorrow, southwest 20, seas 3 feet, southwest 25 here for the eastern North Gulf Coast, western North Gulf Coast, and the Barren Islands. Southeast 30 knots, seas 11 to 12 feet. Small craft advisories are Kachemak Bay as well as southern Cook Inlet, and southwest 20 north of the Forelands. And for Monday, small craft advisories here for Cook Inlet, north 25 to 30 knots, northeast 30 for Kachemak Bay, 25 knots out of the northeast there for the Barren Islands, and northeast 30 for the western North Gulf Coast. Marked difference here on the east side with southeast 40 knots and 16-foot seas. East coming up to 30 knots, Prince William Sound, seas building to about 6 feet. Kodiak Island, gale force winds on the east side from the south, south 30 knots, Shelikof Strait, Sitkinak to Castle Cape, south 40 knots. Gales here for the Alaska Peninsula, southwest 35 and southeast 30 for Bristol Bay. And those will drop off to about 20 knots on Monday there. And then we've got west-northwest winds here for the Alaska Peninsula, 30 knots, so good small craft advisories there, 10 to 16-foot sea, southwest 30 knots, Castle Cape to Sitkinak, right on up the east side of Kodiak Island from the southwest with 13-foot seas. And for the Fox Islands, gales tomorrow, 35 to 40 knot winds with seas running 15 to 22 feet. Gales also here for Adak and Atka, 35 to 40 knot winds there with seas as high as 30 feet on the Pacific side. West 40, drop off to northwest 35, but still gale force for the entire chain. And much lighter winds on Monday out here in the west, north 15, seas coming down to 14 feet. Small craft advisories, Kiska Island or Amchitka across Adak and Atka, northwest 25 to 30 there. And then gale force westerlies here south of Umaka and Unalaska Island, and 30 knots from the west on the north side. Southwest coast, east 30 knots blowing out of Kuskokwim Bay, turn northeast across the Pribilofs and St. Matthew Island, northeast 30 knots. Small craft advisories everywhere here tomorrow, with the exception of Norton Sound, will be 15 knots. Outlook for Monday, north 15, Norton Sound, small craft advisory St. Lawrence Island, northwest 25 in the southwest coast, 25 to 30 knot north-northwesterlies here for the northern Bering Sea down on toward the Pribilofs. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, northeast winds the entire length there, but 15 knots for the central and east side. And brisk wind advisories here on the west side, and then small craft advisories from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, and then gale force northerlies for the Chukchi Sea. Outlook for Monday, north 25 here for the Chukchi Sea, 30 knot winds Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, and the west side still brisk wind advisory there for northeast winds, and no change for the central and eastern coast, northeast at 15. For tonight again, yet another low comes on shore here and weakens rapidly like the one today did. They'll all merge up here over the interior, about 982 here over the eastern interior. Main front off to the east now, but still off the southeast coast, keeping it wet and windy there. This low will track northeastward and weaken tomorrow, but it'll bring a good shot of rain into the southern panhandle. Chance of rain or snow here North Gulf Coast, back to mixture Kodiak Island, could be on the moderate side. Areas of Snow Cop River Basin and up in the north with the winter storm warnings ending. Outlook for Monday, that next system tracks kind of to the south there, bringing a chance of snow across southern Alaska, Kodiak Island.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.